they show up at your door. The Fourth Amendment protects unreasonable, and again, unreasonable searches and seizures. And there's three contexts that searches and seizures fall under. The first one is arrests. The second one would be an investigative type of detention or stop. And the third one is what's called a consensual encounter with law enforcement. Let's talk about arrest. We're going to nip that one in the bud. That is the most intrusive thing that can happen to somebody, is being arrested. And your rights, because of that, are a more heightened standard. What do they need? They need probable cause to arrest you. What's probable cause? I can give you a definition of it. The reality of it is, it's what a judge determines when you go before him on a probable cause affidavit, an affidavit by law enforcement that states what you did and why were you arrested. Now, if a felony is alleged against you, you'll be arrested on the spot if law enforcement deems there's enough. They don't have to see it. You can have a third party saying you committed this, you did that. You're going in. Probable cause is met based on the victim or the witness's statement that's put in the probable cause affidavit. If it is a misdemeanor, there must be reasonable suspicion along with articulable facts to arrest you. There are some exceptions to that. So if law enforcement believes you committed a crime, that's not enough. They would have had to have seen it. Unless domestic violence, they carved out exceptions for domestic violence, batteries, domestic violence, violation of injunctions. Other than that, they do have to see you commit. Yes, sir.
Where does conspiracy fall?
Conspiracy, let me tell you where conspiracy falls. Conspiracy falls at the federal level. You will get indicted for conspiracy. That's what's going to happen. They'll take a case. I know everybody's always asking, RICO, conspiracy. They'll take a case before a grand jury with predicate acts. The grand jury indicts you, then you get arrested. So it falls under the first standard that I was talking about. The third, well, we're talking about arrest, okay. Let's go to the second. We're going to talk about a little bit about at your house first. Can they come in and arrest you? No. They have to have a warrant. If the police come to your residence and say, we're here to talk to you, do you mind if we come in? The answer to that's easy. No. Many people out there think, you know what, I'm smarter than the cops. Well, not necessarily, you may be, but they know a little bit more about the law at times than the average person. And so you don't want to let them in. You had a question?
Step out on the porch?
Step out on the porch? Yeah, they can remain outside.
No, I'm saying, do you step out or you just say no?
My recommendation is call my lawyer and give them the number, give them the card. The last thing you want is them to say you said something that you never said. And if they want you bad enough, they'll lie. They do it every day. They have a license to lie. So your home is your castle. Unless, let's assume you're DUI one night and they're chasing you. You dump your car, you haul ass into your house. Guess who's coming in there? They're coming in. They have every right under the law. Once you've fled to chase you and they see you go in the house, they're getting you. They're getting you. Now, a suspicion of DUI alone isn't enough, but the fleeing and eluding is enough for them to go ahead and chase you into the house. automobiles, motorcycles. Let's assume you're pulled over. You're stopped. First of all, I know a lot of you guys, and I know y'all like to ride hard. And I always hear it all the time. Law enforcement says, hey, they know we're going to be speeding, we're going to be blowing through lights, and they let it go. Well, eventually it's going to catch up, and they're not going to let it go. So what they may allow temporarily, later on, when they want you, they're going to get you. So you're pulled over. First three things, at least in Florida, insurance is one of them. License, registration, and if you're not wearing a helmet in Florida, insurance. Medical insurance. You have to have any kind of medical insurance, 10 grand in Florida if you're not wearing a helmet. So have those somewhere easily accessible so you can, right there, so you can have those out and hand them to them. Yes, sir?
Is that even for out of state? Say I go to Wyoming, go to Florida.
Correct.
I have to have
You talk,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta follow the laws of Florida. However, there's been issues, and I don't know if it was decided yet, where the Commerce Clause is violated because you have business basically going over lines. You're going in to visit Florida, you have to wear a helmet. But you gotta follow the law of the state you're in. So, you've got those three things. Now they say, I like your patch, 1%er. I'd like you to step off the bike. It's no different than being in a car in the state of Florida and in the U.S. They want you to step off the bike. If you're in a cage, you mind stepping out of the car. They can order you out of the car for their safety in Florida, and even passengers that are in the car in the state of Florida, they can ask everybody to go out. So they ask you to get off your bike, you get off your bike. Now, I would hope, after all the speeches I've given over the years, you've got your cell phone taping everything. Coach with the Outlaws, with our West Florida COC, there he is. He put a committee together. They got these pens that will take 3 hours long. They put it right in, and they're recording the whole thing. If you don't have one of those, put your phone on. Whether you don't need to be holding it up, it'll record what you need. But Coach moved the COC, and they've been buying them like hotcakes. So I hope you got everything recorded, because at the end of this, I'm going to tell you what happened in Florida not too long ago, and you're going to like it. So you're recording everything. Sir, I see you're with Mongrels, Outlaws, whoever it is. You don't have to answer that. All you have to do is give them proof of insurance, there's no helmet, registration, license. Would you mind taking, and Florida's hot, would you mind taking your vest off? We're going to take some pictures of your tattoos. No! And if they sit there and try to take pictures of you, you got every right to turn away and cover your face. Now you're in public. Just like you can take pictures of them, they can take pictures of you. But you don't have to cooperate with that. We want to ask you about your boss. No. All our guys have a card that has all your rights on the back. And they hand it to the cop. I know my rights, sir. And they're respectful. Because if you're not respectful, they're going to push back on you. And they tell them, these are my rights. And basically what I've instructed the people to say is, you have my information. They say, do you know why I stopped you? And they just look at them. And it gets very uncomfortable for law enforcement when they ask you a question, you don't respond, because they're authoritative. You were speeding. Sir, if you believe I was speeding, write me the ticket because I have somewhere to go. Well, they're often not too happy about that. They associate the clubs with drugs. So what do? Try to ask you more questions? No. Do you mind if we search your saddlebags? You got nothing to hide, right? The answer is no. you're not allowed to search. Do you mind if we search you? The answer is no, I know my rights. When in doubt, the answer is no. Now, somebody might be a little nervous on that bike because they might have something in their saddlebag they shouldn't. And they might try to start cooperating because they believe, you know what, if I'm nice to the cops, they're going to be nice back to me. Bullshit. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to give them enough by talking or allowing them to search that now they have probable cause to arrest you, and they are going to. I've been practicing 26 years. My first 5 years was strictly criminal. I tried over 100 cases in 5 years, jury, start to finish, myself. And I'm going to tell you this. How many people have hung themselves because of their mouth? If I cooperate, he's going to let me go. No. What you're going to do is give them enough evidence to take you in. If that officer, deputy, whoever it is, has enough to arrest you, up to the point he has to search, to pat you down, you're going to jail whether you allow him to or whether you don't, because he obviously has enough on you. Now, if you don't say anything, no, you can't search, no, you can't do this, he doesn't have nothing on you. And you're not going to jail. Yes, sir.
I'm from California, and I was pulled over once, and they had a couple of knives on me, and the knives were, they were legal and everything.
Common pocket knives.
Right.
Yes.
And he asked me to search my bike, and I told him no. He said, just because I had a couple of knives on me, that gave him probable cause to go ahead and search my bag.
Not in Florida and not federally. If you have a common pocket knife on you in Florida, you're allowed to carry it. Common pocket knife, common length of blade, concealed. Concealed. Now, if you're concealing large blades, you got a problem in Florida and federally.
It was just a pocket knife, but the point I'm getting at is how, I don't know if he lied to me or not, but he said because of the knife, they gave him probable cause, because I told him he couldn't, but he went ahead.
How did he know you had knives on you?
I told him,
There you go. Did y'all hear that? Because I told him. I don't even pick on you. Your mouth gets you in trouble. Again, if you're pulled over and they have enough to arrest you, you're getting arrested. The reason they want to ask you, the reason they want to search, is because they don't have anything on you to arrest you. Don't give it to them. Yes, sir.
Michigan, CPL, I have to announce that I'm armed to the officer. I can't get around that.
Now, when you say CPL carrying, what is
A pistol.
Okay, ours is CCW, carrying concealed
I
weapon.
got rid of that
Okay.
because the knife is a.
All right, let me pivot to that. You got a concealed weapon permit, you're pulled over in Florida, because your law may be different in your state. What is the requirement in Florida? Technically, you're required to inform them that you are carrying a gun on you. Now, I've got a concealed weapon permit. When I get pulled over, do I volunteer that? No. Why? It's a civil fine of like $45. And I know they're not going to be able to issue me a civil ticket because one, they're never going to be able to pat me down. And two, it's a simple traffic infraction. So, again, your state, look at the law in your state. In Florida, you're required, but if you don't and you somehow get caught with that, it's mere civil fine. It's not criminal.
In Michigan, you'll lose your CPL. It's failure to declare.
Yes, and that's a problem then. I mean, that's a problem. I wouldn't want to lose that. I definitely would not want to lose that. So, you go ahead. Now, we're 25 minutes into this stop. And you're saying, hey, am I free to leave? No, not yet. We got a drug dog coming. And you're like, oh shit. Oh, now you start to sweat. Okay. Takes another 10, 15 minutes for the drug dog to come. They put the dog around. It hits on your bike. They said, hey, we're searching the bike. There's nothing you can do there. They're gonna search it. If they find illegal drugs, you're going to jail. They're gonna impound your bike as well. Now, there's a lot of case law that's evolved about drug dogs. My experience is they're not very reliable at all. And now in Florida, certain marijuana is legal. They can't tell the difference between the hemp stuff and the real stuff. So drug dogs, I mean, they're limited in what they can do in Florida. However, I've had clients that have had issues, been arrested. The drug dogs, go ahead, they've got to give you their log. They're required under a Supreme Court case to maintain a log of whether that drug dog was true or whether it was false. And you can get that from the handler, the prosecution as well. So a drug dog comes, you're like, okay, I'm just going to volunteer. I'm nervous. No, let him run it. Why? Now we're 35 minutes into a traffic stop that's going to turn criminal. Fine, it turns criminal. I have a great chance of getting that thrown out on the motion to suppress. Why? What was that? Well, they stopped you for a traffic infraction that should take 15, 20 minutes max. Especially with technology today, less. Because it took 35 minutes and they wait for the drug dog, it gets tossed. It's beyond the scope of a normal traffic stop. And that stop was no longer, at that point in time, it was no longer a stop based on reasonable suspicion, but it now became, you're basically being detained and arrested, even though you may not even be cuffed, because you're not free to leave. So that's drug dogs. Yes?
What are some examples of a cop pulls you over for a traffic stop, and he ends up calling a drug dog? What are some examples of that being improper, that being okay for him to do that, illegal?
It's legal to get a drug dog there within the time frame of what it would take to process a traffic infraction investigation and issuing a ticket.
You have to have probable cause to call the dog.
No, they can have the dog right then and there. They can have the dog on site. They can run that dog. You've got no expectation of privacy of the air around your bike, is what it comes down to. Zero. So they can have a dog right then, or they can 5-10 minutes later, reasonable amount of time, they can have a dog there. Pretextual stops, which you guys know about. They'll pull you over, like somebody said earlier. Cop comes up and I asked him, hey, why'd you pull me over? And he said, I'll think of something. That's pretextual. It's a problem now under the U.S. Supreme Court and in our state of Florida. And I'm going to tell you, they backdoored us in Florida years ago, and it was brutal what they did. But if they say, I'm pulling that man over right there, coach, because he's an outlaw, he's got a kilo sitting in that back in his saddlebag, I'm going to pull him over. So they follow him. Coach decides to do a California roll through a stop sign. They have every right to pull you over, even though they know Coach is a drug dealer. He's not, but just using this as an example. At least not today in his older years. So they have every right, even though it's pretextual. I'm going to pull him over because he's an outlaw and I think he's still dealing drugs. They had every reason to pull him over. He did a traffic infraction. So what happens? They got the dog there, goes around, Coach goes to jail, spends a lot of money on me, and hopefully it works out. We'll figure something out. We got 3 witnesses somewhere, always. But, so the auto and the bike stuff, don't offer, don't say a word. Consensual encounters, that is the least intrusive. And a consensual encounter is you may be out at a bar, you may be out at the sidewalk, out in front of your house. Law enforcement comes up to you. Hey, Joe, I'd like to talk to you. That is the least intrusive of the three: arrests and investigative detentions. Supreme Court, that's perfectly fine. When does that become an investigative detention? I'm going to tell you. The factors are when he commands certain things. Hey, come out to the street so I can talk to you. They always look at the defendant. Do you believe you are free to leave? That is one of the factors that your lawyer will get out. How many Leos are there? One? Or are there 3 or 4 or 5? Their demands they make, what they say to you, do they use an authoritative tone? Hey boy, come here. They ask you for your license, you give it to them. How long do they hold on to that, and why? And if they block your path, anytime your bike's blocked in, your cage, or your path is blocked, those are the factors that make a consensual encounter now become investigative detention, which may lead to your arrest. So what are your rights in public? You don't have to talk to them. You can walk away, and you should. There's no need to make fun of these guys. They're clowns as it is. Walk away, don't give them any information, and be on your way. You don't have to give them your driver's license. For what reason? There is no reason. All right, what do you do when you're pulled over? Polite. I always write it down. Be polite. Being an asshole is not going to get you anywhere except in jail with a cop lying about you. Record the whole interrogation, as I call it. Why? Back in the day, not too long ago, the cops felt as though we weren't allowed to record them. Those cases got challenged and we're allowed to record them without them even knowing. They're out in public and they're public figures. Record them all day long. Driver license, registration, insurance, have it ready to go. No small chat. If for some reason you feel compelled to transport something maybe you shouldn't be, make sure it is under lock and key in a container of some sort. So if you've got to transport something for whatever, it should be in your saddlebag. That saddlebag should be locked, and whatever's in there should have its own lock, period. Why? Because that shows that you had privacy and that was important to you. Important enough, you got a lock on it. If you're ordered off your bike, you got to step off your bike. If you're ordered the passengers out of the car with you, they got to step out with you. Now, if you're off your bike and you've got a 40 caliber Beretta and that thing's sticking out, they can say, for our safety, we're going to pat you down. You've got something bulged where, hey, they'll pat you down, you got your gun on you, you got your permit, you're okay. If you don't have a permit, you're going to jail. But there's still ways to fight that. I had a case not too long ago where a gentleman had problems in South Florida, west coast of South Florida, where the sheriff's department was harassing him. And he had a little roach hotel that he was going to remodel and sell. He posted signs, no trespassing. Law enforcement not permitted on the property. I mean, he had anti-law enforcement on the gate. And it was apparent. He didn't want him around. So there's this young cop, all juiced up on steroids, who thought he was going to cause a problem for Mr. Enzo, my client. They were looking for a suicidal suspect, supposedly. They thought he was running drugs out of the place, and he wasn't. Suicidal suspect at a hotel off of 41, Tamiami Trail in Florida. So they sent law enforcement to several of the locations. One of them was my client's, which was a pair, it was being remodeled, there's nobody there. My client, smart enough, had surveillance all over his residence, which was also part of the motel he was remodeling. He sees law enforcement pull up, go to the front door, he's reading the sign, you know, no police allowed on my property. He then comes to the gate. Law enforcement's beginning to back out. He stops, he gets out. And he's saying something, you can't hear it because there's no audio. My client is holding up his cell phone, his iPhone, recording it as well, with audio. He walks up to the front of the cruiser, and he's very hesitant. And the cop's saying something to him and pointing. And he kind of just backs up, he's holding his phone, and then the cop goes by his car, and my guy goes a little closer, like, because he couldn't hear him, the car's running. And all of a sudden, the cop takes a pad out, throws it on top of the hood. He wanted him to give him his name, write his name down. My guy said, no, I'm going to call my lawyer. And he begins to back up, and he's bum rushed by the cop. The cop grabs him by his arms, grabs his phone, and now it's about 8, 9 o'clock at night. Grabs his phone, and you can see it because the screen's lit up. Throws it on the hood of the cruiser, and it goes up onto the windshield. And it's a bright box. My guy doesn't touch the cop, he braces himself, and he's an old guy, about 60. And this guy's all chiefed up on steroids. Well, he had called backup right before he did that. Backup shows up, and they see him struggling with my guy on the hood of the car. He can't take my guy down. Backup comes, all of them fall to the ground. Now the original guy pulls a taser out, and he starts tasering my guy multiple times. Then the other cop starts to taser my guy multiple times. And my guy's pulling the tasers off of him. You'd have thought he was high on something, but he wasn't. Clean and sober. He's able to finally, after about a minute struggle, and he was tased no less than 5 times during that struggle, get away, runs to the back, and the cameras caught him, and it was like, remember the old Benny Hinn shows? Benny Hill, that's right. The other guy's some religious freak, but anyway, not that religious people are free, because I'm a very religious person. But anyway, Benny Hill. And another cop shows up. They taser him again. They then go ahead and put OC spray, pepper spray in his eyes. And they arrest him. Guess for what? Battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting arrest with violence. So I get the call, and he's about a month, not even about 20 days from arrest, and he's telling me this story. And I've heard these stories hundreds of times. So I'm like, oh, here we go. Sir, this is great, but do you have a witness? No. Do you have at least a recording somewhere? He goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, it's all on video. I said, what? He goes, it's all on video. I'll send you the link. He sends it to me. What do you want to accomplish? One, you got a great civil rights lawsuit. Yep, we're going to do that. What do you want to accomplish? You want this guy's job? The one guy, definitely. The other guy, he showed up, there's a struggle. He said, yeah, I want his job. All right, hire me on the criminal case, and then we'll do the civil on the other end. So he hires me. I call the state up, hey, this guy's got no priors. What are you seeking? 180 days jail, and he's going to be a convicted felon. So I start laughing. I don't know this prosecutor, because he's 3.5 hours from where I live. He says, what's so funny? I said, don't you think that's a little extreme for a 60-something-year-old man from Brooklyn, New York, who has no priors? No, what he did to those cops is wrong. I said, okay. So I sent the deposition of the cop, the main one, or both of them, but I wanted the one guy. He shows up. I said, listen, I'm real sorry what happened to you. I love law enforcement. I hate to hear these things, but I got a job to do. But man, I really feel for you. This guy's all cheeked up. He's like, oh, thank you. So I lead him by this sweet little path. And then he hits you this way, didn't he? Yeah? because I got all their sworn to arrest affidavits of probable cause. I got their police reports. And I lead him down this path. And he gives me everything in the world to hang him with. And then when we're almost done, I said, let me ask you one last question. Mr. Enzo, his phone, did you take that out of his hand? What phone? I said, well, did you erase his phone, which the video showed him take the phone after he was arrested into the cruiser for a minute, come out? Everything was erased, by the way, on the phone. But we had the cameras from the hotel. He goes, nope, I never touched it. Don't know anything about a phone. I said, let me ask you one last question. And I looked him right in the eyes, and I said, do you know if there's a recording of this event? And you could just see him he was like, what? I said, do you know if there's a recording? He said, well, do you know? I said, I don't know anything. I get to ask the questions, you get to answer them. And he goes, no, there's no recording. I said, okay. I walk out, it's a Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock. I tell the prosecutor, I've got a Dropbox link. When I get to my car on my iPad, I'm going to send it to you. I said, but don't look at it today. Look at it tomorrow. I don't want your whole weekend to be ruined. What time? I said, don't worry. So I sent it to him. Monday, I get no call. Wednesday, we have a pretrial. I said, you know what? These people are dirty now. They're protecting their own. I go ahead and I send a certified overnight to Amira Fox, his boss, saying, here's the situation of what happened. I provided your office with the Dropbox link, and if you don't drop this case on Wednesday, I'm putting you on notice, will be sued for malicious prosecution because you know this is not a valid arrest. And the law enforcement lied. They shit when they got that. They took that letter, they dropped the charges completely. They took the letter that I had with all the exhibits and everything and the Dropbox links, and they took it to the department, the Lee County Sheriff's Department, and asked that an internal affairs be opened up. We took part in the internal affairs, and the cop, the day of the hearing, resigned effective immediately. There was a recommendation to terminate him. He was untruthful, this, that. There was the works in it. So there's ways, the reason I tell you this, don't always show all your cards. We got a dirty cop off the street. This thing was all over the news down there. He will never ever get another job with another agency. Period. Yes, sir.
Well, did the client guy got beat up by the cops and paid? Did he get any money?
Yeah, it's a civil rights lawsuit now.